Have you ever really thought about what happens if everything just stops? Not just the power flicking off for a few hours, but the whole grid going down permanently. Or like all the tech we rely on just gone. It's a pretty scary thought, right? Something most of us probably try not to dwell on. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something that does dwell on it. It's a system called Blast-Proof David's Shield. The claim is it offers a solid plan, a real strategy for protecting your family if that kind of chaos actually happens. So our mission here is to unpack this thing based on the sources we've got. We'll look at what it's really about, its whole approach to survival, and what makes it different, at least according to the people behind it and those who've used it. It's really about understanding the what and the why of this program and the ideas it's built on. See what it might mean for preparedness. Okay, so let's get into this. The core idea, Blast-Proof David's Shield. It seems to be built around a pretty huge assumption, doesn't it? The potential collapse of modern society. The sources talk about things like an EMP.
That's an electromagnetic pulse, right? Or other big system failures.
Right. An EMP or other, yes, systemic breakdowns. It's definitely presented as a guide for those truly unthinkable situations where everything just stops working. And what's really interesting is how it frames those threats. It's not just, say, a hurricane or a localized disaster. The sources specifically mention EMPs, yes, but they also talk about the growing unreliability of our technology, our dependence on AI systems that control so much now.
So there's a sense of vulnerability in just how connected everything is.
Exactly. And there's another layer, too, which the sources bring up quite clearly. The system claims it helps you prepare for, or maybe withstand, what some interpret as the beast system from the Book of Revelation.
Okay, so there's a specific sort of biblical dimension to this as well.
Yes, very much so. It's often linked to ideas about a future, maybe centralized power structure emerging after a collapse. So the program isn't just about, physical survival. It's framed as thriving afterwards with faith, wisdom, and a secure home base.
That definitely adds a different angle compared to a lot of standard survival stuff.
Yeah.
So who put this guide together? These are some big claims.
The sources name a creator, Henry Morris. He's described as a seasoned survival expert.
Seasoned expert,
Yeah.
Okay. Do the sources give any more background on him? Like, what makes him the guy for this?
Well, they position him as someone with a lot of practical, hands-on experience, not just theory. They don't list, specific degrees or anything, but the feeling you get is that his expertise comes from actually doing this stuff, living through crises, understanding self-sufficiency.
Right, real-world knowledge.
Yeah, and that seems to be why the program focuses on these actionable, sort of down-to-earth solutions. It's definitely pitched as different, not the usual buy tons of gear approach, more accessible.
Okay, yeah, that's where I was going next. Because that is interesting. So many survival guides are heavy on gear, right? Complex gadgets, stockpiles. But the sources specifically say David's Shield isn't like that. So what makes it different? What's the unique blend here?
Well, connecting the dots, it seems to blend a few key things. Ancient survival ideas, modern know-how. And specifically, the sources mention 3 pillars. Biblical wisdom is one. Then practical survival techniques. And the third is drawing on knowledge from the Amish way of life.
The Amish. Okay, that's definitely unique.
It is, and it kind of challenges that typical survivalist thinking, Instead of complex tech that might actually fail when you need it most, it suggests resilience comes from simplifying, from community wisdom maybe, and that spiritual foundation we mentioned.
So it's less about relying on stuff that could break down and more about skills and faith.
Exactly. Building resilience through what you know and how you approach things, rather than just what you own. It's a different take on preparedness, focusing on, let's say, inner resources alongside practical ones.
That sounds really holistic, covering a lot more than just canned goods and water filters. So if it's not about the fancy, expensive gear, what does this look like day to day? How does it actually help you, protect your house, get food and water, make things safe if everything's gone sideways? Can you give us some specific examples from the sources? How does it work on the ground?
Yeah, that's the key question, isn't it? How does it work practically without all the high-tech stuff? The system claims it's a step-by-step guide. So take EMP protection. Instead of buying some expensive pre-made box, the guide supposedly shows you how to build your own Faraday shield.
Build your own.
Yeah, using simple materials. The sources mention things like metal trash cans, maybe even aluminum foil properly configured, stuff you might already have or that's cheap to get.
Okay, so protecting key electronics like a radio or something.
Right. Radios, maybe essential medical devices, things you'd really need. The goal is making protection accessible. Then there's self-sufficiency skills, Think about no refrigeration.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So the guide covers things like preserving food, using older methods fermentation, pickling, maybe even how to build a basic root cellar if you have the space, using the Earth's temperature.
Right, old school techniques.
Exactly. And for water, learning filtering methods that don't need electricity, maybe using layers of sand, charcoal, cloth, basic materials to get safe drinking water.
Things people used for centuries.
Pretty much. And light and heat, too. Making simple oil lamps, knowing how to use wood efficiently and safely for heat. Again, basic materials, basic principles.
Okay, makes sense. What about keeping your home safe? Survival tactics.
Well, the guide talks about practical ways to secure your home using natural defenses. That could mean ways to reinforce doors and windows simply, maybe creating hidden storage spots, or even setting up low-tech alert systems, like tripwires with bells, perhaps. I'm speculating on the exact method, but the principle is low-tech.
So securing things without relying on alarm systems or fancy locks that might not work anyway.
Precisely. Protecting your supplies, creating security, using resourcefulness, not technology or weapons that might become hard to maintain or find ammo for long term.
And this is where the Amish methods come in strongly, I guess.
Yeah, this seems to be a core part of it, integrating techniques from a community that's intentionally lived largely off-grid for generations. So think about effective food growing without modern machinery. Maybe ways to store medicines without refrigeration, perhaps using cool, dark places or knowledge of herbal alternatives.
Things that don't need electricity at all.
Right, building simple, durable systems. The idea is to tap into that deep well of Amish knowledge on sustainable, non-electric living. It's proven resilience, you know?
Definitely. And you mentioned a spiritual element, too.
Yes, beyond the physical stuff, there's a big emphasis on spiritual and practical readiness together. The sources say it focuses on equipping you to lead your family, not just with supplies, but with faith, wisdom, a calm head when things are chaotic.
So mental and spiritual strength are just as important as having food stored away.
That seems to be the message. It's a holistic approach, addressing your mindset, your family's morale, your decision-making under pressure. That's pretty different from just a list of gear to buy.
And you said the sources stress it's affordable and accessible.
Yeah, that comes up repeatedly. It's apparently designed for regular families, whatever their budget. The focus is on knowledge, on skills, not on buying expensive solutions.
It really drives home that idea. Resilience from knowing and doing, not just owning. Okay, so we've got the theory, the principles, the how it works. But what about people who've actually used this? We have some testimonials, right?
Yeah.
From verified purchasers. What do they say? Does it actually deliver for families in the real world?
Yeah, the feedback gives some really valuable insights into how people perceive it and what they get out of it. There's one from Sarah, a verified purchaser. She said she'd bought loads of prepping guides before,
Oh, okay.
but this was the only one that really, quote, made sense to her. She liked the biblical approach combined with practical, no-nonsense advice.
No nonsense. Okay.
And she specifically mentioned learning how not to rely on expensive, high-tech gear that, as she realized, could just fail anyway. She said the system gave her real peace of mind.
Peace of mind. That's a big goal for anyone looking into this stuff, I imagine.
Absolutely. Then there's Lisa. She shared a really direct example. She credited David Shields' strategies for helping her family during a 9-day power outage after a big blizzard.
9 days. That's serious.
Yeah, and she said they stayed calm and were well prepared. She specifically pointed to the off-grid heat and food storage tips as being, quote, lifesavers.
So the low-tech stuff really worked when the grid failed.
It seems so in her experience. While others around them were struggling, they apparently managed okay because of those methods.
Interesting. Any others?
Yes, Emily. She's a pastor. She found the system really aligned with the teachings she shares.
So tying back into that faith element.
Exactly. She found the biblical foundation and practical survival advice really valuable, both for her own family and for guiding people in her congregation. She actually recommends it specifically to Christian men looking to lead their families through uncertain times, reinforces that aspect of faith, leadership, and resilience.
Wow. Okay. Those are some pretty strong endorsements highlighting different aspects of the program. It really seems like these experiences back up what the program claims to do. Give peace of mind, practical solutions rooted in faith, and all without needing, a fortune's worth of gear.
Yeah, it definitely positions itself as empowering people through knowledge and a particular worldview, rather than just through accumulating stuff. Resilience from within, essentially.
So wrapping up our deep dive today on blast-proof David's Shield, we've looked at its core premise preparing for potentially major societal collapse. We explored its unique approach, blending biblical wisdom, practical skills, and lessons from the Amish. And we saw how it aims to equip families to thrive, not just survive, focusing on knowledge and accessible methods over expensive tech.
It really does present a distinct philosophy of preparedness, which leaves us, and maybe you listening, with something to think about. In our world, which is so reliant on these complex, fragile systems, how might integrating this kind of ancient wisdom, these self-sufficiency skills like David's Shield proposes, how might that offer a different kind of resilience, maybe a deeper, more enduring kind than what our modern world usually values or promotes?